Anytime that we're talking about Japanese role-playing games on the PlayStation 1, some names come up more often than others. Obviously, Final Fantasy is the first that most of us think of. Then you've got The Legend of Dragoon, Breath of Fire, Suikoden, Wild Arms. All of these are great games, but there's one JRPG on that system that I think is very overlooked these days. Lunar Silver Star Story is a remake of a Sega CD game, and with the way that retro prices are right now, the asking price for this game has gone up quite a bit lately, although I got this copy a few years ago before all this ever happened. And that was a little bit before I ever started reviewing games, so I thought it would be kind of fun to go back and give this one another look. And what I found was that, on the surface, Lunar is very similar to a lot of other JRPGs on the PS1, but it also breaks and bends a lot of typical JRPG tropes, which makes playing through this a very unique experience. Lunar Silver Star Story follows a teenage boy named Alex who has dreams of becoming the world's next Dragon Master. One day, his best friend Ramus talks him into an adventure into the White Dragon Cave to find a dragon diamond. And by the way, it's later revealed that the dragon diamond is literally just dragon poop. Alex's girlfriend Luna decides to tag along because she doesn't think that they can take care of themselves. And I really appreciate that Alex and Luna are unambiguously boyfriend and girlfriend. There's no will they or won't they bullshit, and the fact that they have that previous relationship makes the stakes seem all that much higher when she's inevitably kidnapped. Characters are all introduced through anime cutscenes, which are also used for a lot of the major story moments. And I found that most games that have these sort of cutscenes, they'll usually have just one for the introduction, one at the end, and then maybe one or two of the bigger story beats. But in Lunar, these scenes come up almost constantly. I'm actually impressed that they were able to fit as many of these onto the disc as they did. And the 2D sprites and pixel artwork are just as visually appealing as these anime scenes are. The game also uses a good amount of voice acting, which helps show off that newfangled CD technology. And unlike most games from around this time that feature voice acting, most of it is actually pretty good.
I don't remember when it started exactly, but the dream of having a fantastic adventure in far-off places grabbed my heart early and is yet to let go.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I mistook you for a messenger of my mother's. My name is Mia. Mia Ausa. May I ask your name?
Oh! Oh, help! Help me! Get away from me, you dastardly fiends!
Okay, I said most of it, not all of it. Anyway, the voice clips that play in battle can be really annoying. Especially Nash's
Check this out!
or Jessica's.
Althena, lend me your power!
I also really like this game's soundtrack. It can be an epic sweeping score when the story needs it to be, or a funkadelic bass and drum jam when the composer wants it to be. And music also plays a big part of the story. Luna is a very gifted singer, and part of the big bad guy's big bad plan involves taking control of her voice. The overall presentation of this game is phenomenal. The company that localized it is a publisher called Working Designs, and they always did a fantastic job of not only localizing the game, but making the overall package a very special experience for the player. Like the special edition release of this game that I have includes things like a soundtrack CD, a cloth map, an absolutely gorgeous manual, and a making a video CD. But my favorite part of this entire package is still the story, and I especially love how it takes a lot of typical JRPG tropes and flips them all on their head. A lot of JRPGs have romance in them, but Lunar is one of the very few where romance is a central theme. Just about all of the main characters are romantically connected in one way or another. I already mentioned that Alex and Luna are boyfriend and girlfriend at the start of the game. Kyle and Jessica dated before the events of the game and end up back together before all is said and done. Then Nash and Mia also wind up together. And towards the end of the game, it is revealed that one of Galleon's henchmen, a woman named Zenobia, was in love with him from the very beginning. The romantic connection that these characters share is also reflective in the gameplay. Nash and Mia both share the Black Mage role, with Nash having all of the lightning and debuff spells, while Mia has all of the fire and ice spells. Thieves and healers are characters that typically don't do a whole lot of damage in combat, but Kyle, who is this game's thief, and Jessica, who is this game's healer, are both very strong attackers. Even the characters who aren't romantically involved with each other still have a lot of respect for each other and show a lot of support for one another. It's a lot easier for the player to start loving the characters when it's this obvious that the characters feel that love for each other. And the only character that I didn't like was Nash. I just thought he was an annoying jack-off. First of all, he has his head so far up his ass that he can lick his own nostrils clean. He's completely arrogant and full of himself. Plus, for most of the game, he's a bit of a creep towards Mia. He joins your party a little bit before you ever meet Mia, and when he first joins your party, he already has Mia's bromade in his inventory. And the bromades are these pieces of art you can find around the world, and I didn't really bother with them because they don't seem to really do much. But anyway, Mia's bromade is described as Nash's treasure, and it's just a picture of Mia slightly bent over. The creepy little bastard is totally whacking it to this picture. Okay, seriously, fuck Nash, that dude is a total douchebag. But he's the only annoying character in the entire game. Everybody else is actually very likable. I love turn-based combat, it's my favorite type of gameplay in the entire world. And I feel like the gameplay of Lunar is solid, but it also leaves a lot to be desired. One thing that makes this gameplay unique is that there are no random encounters. Instead, monsters show up on the field, and you don't battle them unless you touch them. This is a nice idea, but in practice it really just feels like a cock tease, and I would have preferred random encounters. Putting enemies on the field like this is usually done so that the players can choose if they want to fight the monsters or not, but half the time they're either blocking your way, or they'll chase after you if you try to run away from them. What is the point of putting the monsters on the field like this if you're just going to make me fight them all anyway? Although once you clear an area of enemies, they don't respawn until you leave the dungeon, so it is kind of nice to be able to clear an area of enemies and then explore it in peace. Before battle, you're able to choose the starting positions of all your characters, and this goes much deeper than the usual back row front row mechanic that most games like this use. Most spells and abilities will only affect a certain area, so you have to always be mindful of your character and enemy positions. Characters only have a certain range that they're able to move for an attack, so if you have a character use their regular attack against an enemy that's out of range, they won't be able to hit it. Once a character attacks an enemy, they will stay next to that enemy, so once again, character and enemy positions are something that you really need to pay attention to. The boss fights scale to your main character's current level, and when I first played through this game a few years ago, I took that to mean that there was no need to level grind at all. However, that is not true. You still need to grind a little bit, but that's mostly because the MP management in this game is a much bigger pain in the ass than I feel like it should be. First of all, your basic MP recovery item, the Starlight, hardly does anything at all, so it takes a lot of them to fully restore your MP. And the game doesn't have any ends, instead you restore your HP and MP at these goddess statues. There is one in each town, but there aren't any in any of the dungeons at all. So the only way to restore your MP in a dungeon is with whatever items you can take with you. Alex's spells, which are really more like sword techniques, use more MP than anyone else's. And Alex has the smallest MP pool, so you'll want to save his techniques for the boss fights. Then your normal spell users do have a lot of MP, but with how long these dungeons are, you'll constantly be restoring their MP if you go around casting spells in every battle. So you'll need to do more grinding to get more money for more Starlights, which, like I said, hardly do anything at all. Luckily, there aren't very many boss fights. They're used pretty sparingly throughout the game. And the few that do come up, all have pretty much the exact same strategy. Spend the first couple of turns throwing out some buffs and debuffs, and then spam your best attacks. And by the way, Kyle's Sonic Razor ability is described as Release Weasel. I've beaten this game twice now, and I still have no idea what that means. Also, later in the game, I came across an enemy called a Nipple Yanker. I have nothing to say about this, just wanted to point it out. Even though I have a lot of complaints and nitpicks about it, I did still enjoy the gameplay here, I just don't think it's the game's greatest strength. That still goes to its story, and the thing that carries the story the most are the wonderfully well done characters. Like I already mentioned, the player takes control of Alex, a kid with dreams of becoming the next Dragon Master. When he goes with Rammus to meet with the White Dragon, the dragon recognizes Alex's potential of becoming the next Dragon Master and sends him on a quest to meet with the remaining dragons. Eventually, Alex meets with Galleon, who is supposed to be the game's twist villain, but he just looks so much like a bad guy that it's impossible for me to believe that nobody saw this coming. But I did find it interesting that there wasn't really a villain for the first 10 hours or so of the game. The first part of the story is just about a kid following his dreams and nothing more. And I don't really like Galleon as a villain. My biggest problem with him is that he feels more like a MacGuffin than an actual villain. If you're not familiar with what a MacGuffin is, it's essentially an element of the story that at first it seems like it's pretty important, but when all is said and done, it really doesn't matter and it's only there to sort of move things along. The most famous example of this is probably the Death Star plans in the original Star Wars. The movie really isn't about rebels going to blow up the Death Star, it's about Luke learning how to use the Force. And that's why the big climactic moment of the movie happens when Luke uses the Force for the first time. It's what everything was leading up to. In very much the same way, the story of Lunar is really more about Alex's quest to become a Dragon Master than anything that has to do with beating Galleon. There is a really awesome moment that happens after Galleon is revealed to be the big bad guy, where everyone has their own reason for wanting to go up against him, so they all decide to band together. Alex is fighting to save his woman, Nash is fighting because he regrets the way he supported Galleon before the reveal and feels some responsibility for Luna's kidnapping. And the little bastard should feel bad about it. Mia is fighting because she feels like, as the future leader of the Magic Guild, it is her responsibility to do everything that she can to stop Galleon's plan. Then Jessica is fighting because her father was turned into stone by Zenobia, and killing Zenobia appears to be the only way to break that spell. And then Kyle is fighting because he wants to get his dick wet. They really tried to portray Galleon as the hero of his own story, but they didn't really do a very good job of it. His motivation is to create what he thinks will be a better world, but we never see him do anything other than act like a total bastard, and he obviously doesn't care about anything outside of increasing his own power. Sometimes it feels like the story has a hard time staying focused. It takes a lot of detours, and there are a lot of random fetch quests that I have very mixed feelings about. On the one hand, they don't really feed into the main plot and they sort of feel like a bit of padding for the game. But on the other hand, some characters are given their best moments during these little story detours. Like this one here, where one of your items has been stolen and you have to go on this long quest to get it back. There's a point during that quest where the party is trapped by one of Zenobia's illusions, and the illusion is broken by the feelings that Kyle and Jessica share for each other. Again, this whole quest feels like a distraction for the main story, but this is also a very touching moment between these characters. As you get up to the final showdown against Galleon, Zenobia traps the party in another illusion, and breaking this illusion shows just how far these characters have come as people. By this point, Nash has finally learned that people have value beyond their powers and abilities. Kyle learns that life isn't all just about fun and games. Mia learns about her own inner strength and how to overcome her insecurities. And Jessica learns how to accept herself and embrace how different she is from how she thinks her father wants her to be. Then Alex's bullheaded stubbornness alone is enough to break through the last part of the illusion and allow the party to save the day. Even though I have a lot of complaints and nitpicks about the game, this is still one of my favorite JRPGs on the PS1. I would put it at just about the same level of any of the Final Fantasy games on that system. And it's a real shame that this game is sort of hard to come across these days. When I found it a few years ago, it was worth around $75, and the price has only gone up since then. Last time I looked, it was worth around $130 or so. And there aren't many games with values in the triple digits that I feel like are really worth the asking price. But this is one of those rare occasions where it actually might be worth that kind of price. Although at the end of the day, emulation will always be a cheaper option for everybody. Thank you so much for watching my review of Lunar Silver Star Story. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up and tell me about it in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, I upload every Saturday. Follow me on Twitter, and I hope to see you next time.